This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 126.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? This is like the seventh take of this intro. It's usually easier when Benny's here, but let's try to do this right this time. I'm excited about today's guest. His name is Larson Stair, and he is the CEO of DemoFlow. And if you haven't heard of DemoFlow, that means you have not heard Chris White talk, because Chris loves it. And I really wanted to talk to Larson. It is not a sponsored show, but he went from SE to CEO throughout his career. And this has been CEO month, or this will be CEO month. We talked to Euron last week of SalesFlare, and now we're talking to Larson. Next week, we're talking to another CEO. And I just love that, SEs have the ability and have the capability and are qualified to be CEOs if that's the path that they want to go to. Obviously, there are some things that they need to get lucky with, but you'll see throughout the story, throughout Larson's story, how he was able to orchestrate getting there, basically. Maybe it took some luck, but it would not have happened if he didn't think ahead and understand where he wanted to go. We're going to jump into the show in a second, but for some housekeeping items, just if you've been or if your job has been affected by this pandemic, make sure to reach out to me. Make sure, I'd love to have you to discuss with you. If you've not heard of No SE Left Behind, it's a 10-minute video that I put on LinkedIn where I'm interviewing you and, just having a chat, a casual chat, interview-like chat, so that you can highlight your strengths and hopefully bypass some steps to speed up the process of getting hired. And it seems to be working well. I know at least 3 of the 9 that I've interviewed have gotten jobs, not just job offers, they've started their jobs. So reach out, let me know. Find a way. There's a tab on the website called No SE Left Behind. You can register there, or you can just reach out to me in any other form. It's not like I'm hiding. So reach out, and I'll see you then. With that, let's jump into the show. Good afternoon, Larson. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic, Ramsey. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, and I'm excited to have a chat with you today. But in order for me to tell people why I'm excited, I would like for you to introduce yourself so they have context.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing me on the podcast here today in the discussion. So just by way of introduction, my name is Larson Stair. I'm CEO and co-founder of DemoFlow. DemoFlow is a tool that helps software sales organizations create scalable processes around how they're pitching and presenting their own products. And really my background lies in, been working in sales, the sales environment for about 10 years now, working in SaaS for about 5, and spent some of that time within the pre-sale space, running demos for enterprise clients that we were trying to bring on at a previous company before starting DemoFlow.
Okay. And so I met you through Chris White, who loves DemoFlow for some reason. I don't know why. You can tell me why. So I'm really excited to talk to you because you mentioned that you're the CEO today, but you were in sales.
Yep.
How long did you spend in sales in total? You said around 10 years. And how much as a sales engineer specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my career is basically split right down the middle, 5 and 5, we'll call it. So 5 years was spent outside of SaaS sales in medical device selling. And then I always wanted to transition into more formal like software selling. And so, starting about 5 years ago, I started as an SDR, and then I was promoted to a pre-sales solution consultant in our enterprise space at my previous company, and then landed at a full cycle account executive. So spent roughly about a year in the pre-sales space before branching into the full cycle selling motions.
Okay. So many people are afraid of changing careers or technologies, and you kind of went from medical to...
Just got you there? Oh, there you are.
Hey.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. So I was just saying that many people are afraid to change careers or change industries, and you went from medical to SaaS, and they're not very similar.
No, they're not similar at all.
And so why were you interested in going to transitioning like that? It's not a safe career choice, people would think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So, really before I got into the medical selling space, went back to my college years, I actually started a business, medical staffing business in college. And that's where I kind of caught the entrepreneurial bug, so to speak. I started that business, it was in the medical space, graduated and wanted to work in software. I actually met my current co-founder at that time. We were good buddies, lived together in college, but wanted to get into SaaS sales at that time, but just couldn't branch into it, almost 10 years ago. And so had to learn more about just how to sell in general, which is where I kind of landed me in the medical device selling space. And then, always keeping this in the back of my mind that I really want to be an entrepreneur, want to start my own software company, but knew I needed to learn how to sell software before actually getting to that spot. So that's why that kind of transition from medical to software just made a ton of sense for me. It had been a part of a larger 10-year plan, and just had to kind of work my way to that spot.
So you knew exactly where you wanted to be, and you figured out the path to get there, which
Exactly right.
I know for myself, when I started university, I didn't even know what jobs were out there for me.
Yeah.
Right? And I landed a support engineer role. I didn't know what that was. And then I moved to sales engineering. I applied for that job as a systems engineer. I didn't know what that was. So it's interesting to see you knowing exactly where you want and working your way towards that.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I actually went to school to be a doctor. So I had my medical school application in. So sometimes life kind of throws some weird angles at you. And that's kind of what, didn't intend on being here. But once I found it, I was laser focused on getting here.
Okay. So you had a plan that was completely derailed.
Totally.
And you found another plan.
Yeah.
Nice.
Not as laser focused as it may appear, but yeah, exactly.
It's more focused than most, I would say. Was it kind of scary to go from medical sales to SaaS to SDR?
Oh yes. I mean, my medical selling experience was all in person, and I was transitioning from an in-person selling role to a remote inside selling motion role, right? SDR, doing cold calls, cold emails, not even running the sales cycle really. And so, yeah, it was pretty terrifying, but I just knew I wanted to do it. I knew I needed to get over that hump of learning these skill sets and getting myself into a spot, knowing that this is, where it needs to take me.
How did you know that this would take you to where you are today?
I don't know. That's a good question. I just believed in myself, really. I knew that I needed to learn how to do lead gen, run demos, then run full cycle sales, try to get to a management position. But all the while, while we were kind of doing those day-to-day roles, I kept working with my co-founder and thinking, what are some ideas we can come up with? So we worked on a few prototype ideas throughout the years, different than demo flow, a few iterations that we've been through. And so that always just really inspired me. I loved doing that. I loved building stuff. I loved, working on new projects and providing something that doesn't exist right now. And so it just felt effortless to run through those motions. And I knew that these are things that I needed to do so I could actually fulfill my end of the equation, which was the selling side. All while Jack, my current co-founder, was learning, how to code and write software. This is all, just part of the plan, really.
Nice. Yeah, I can't think past 1 year what I want to do. So it's interesting. We might have to dig into it a little bit deeper. So how was your experience as an SDR, and how did a lot of people go from sales engineer to sales? You went from SDR to sales engineering to sales. Mm-hmm. So how was that whole experience?
Yeah, well, being an SDR is one of the most challenging roles in SaaS sales, in my opinion. I mean, there's a lot of rejection there. There's less rewards. You're not closing the deals, so it's just passing off deals. So it was tough, no doubt. But I was working at a great company, had some great leadership at that time to help me train me up and give me some free reign to be creative in how I want to generate appointments and leads. And I probably spent maybe a little under a year, so about 10 months in the SDR role. I was hitting my numbers, hitting my quota, and then I just caught the attention of the director of solution consultant at the time, and he wanted me to come join his team as the second SC.
Okay. And just for people who don't know, what is SDR and what is the quota that you're talking about?
Yeah, so SDR is a sales development representative, or also known as BDR, business development representative. And really their job is to generate leads and pass them off, qualify those leads and pass them off to an account executive who could be doing further qualification, discovery calls, so on and so forth. And so, we had to generate, anywhere from 15 to 20 leads per month that were qualified. And so that was my job really. And I worked directly within the enterprise space. So working with larger organizations to help to generate those leads and bring them to our enterprise team.
Okay. And how are you said you hit your quota. Is your quota based on like how much money the salesperson closes in the end, or how many leads you provide? What is that?
Yeah, it was really more about the leads that were provided. It was just, hey, once you get past the discovery call, they have to show up, have a discussion with the account executive, meet a certain set of criteria. It could be BANT or whatever that qualification criteria might be. But once it's become a sales accepted opportunity or sales qualified opportunity taken by the account executive, that's when we would get credit for that. And, we would get a point on our quota, so to speak.
Okay. What are the skills that you learned as an SDR that some salespeople miss by not being an SDR and you still use them today?
Yeah. My writing skills, I would say. I think it's really easy to just mass blast everybody, and that just frankly doesn't work anymore. And so doing deep diligence on a person or a company and understanding, what is the current state of that company, what could be an intriguing message that is relevant to the product that I'm selling, and how do you captivate their attention over email and inspire them to take a meeting? That's a true art in itself of like, how do you captivate? There's so much noise nowadays with people getting emailed nonstop. Like, how do you really draw people's attention? And that's something that has lasted me, still do it today. And even beyond this is how do you, sift through the noise and stand out?
It's interesting. As a sales engineer, or as someone who was an engineer and a sales engineer now, I never thought that I would need to entice a person to read my email. Like,
right?
I'm sending you an email, you read it. Like,
you should read it, right?
Yeah, that's the way it is. But since I started this blog and this website, I started thinking about like, all right, there is something called copywriting, and it's all about writing a enticing subject and so people can take action, which I never thought about before. And it's interesting that you bring it up.
Yeah, and there's a lot of experimentation that needs to occur when that happens, right? Like you don't really know right off the bat what's going to be the most intriguing message. And so it's a lot of failure in that. There's a lot of bad emails, there's a lot of stuff like that happens, but you pick up tips and tricks along the way.
Is there like, did you find it that most people would read an email if you send it versus like some here, some there? Maybe I'm not asking the question right. Let me rephrase that. So is there a certain email that most people end up reading, or a certain title, like, or was it very specific?
I think there are specific subject lines that can get more open rates. There are certain things that you can do in the subject line, but when it comes to the actual body of the email, like that's kind of all over the map. There's no one size fits all there. It's really just like, how much do you research and care about the other person on the receiving end and try to somehow find an enticing point or comment or whatever that has some relation to what you're doing. And that just takes a lot of research really and a lot of time, but it's effective when you do it well.
Okay. A lot of people take the approach of like a numbers game, email as many people as you can and see what sticks. It's kind of like the spray and pray methodology.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. And you went the other route. So you moved from SDR to sales consulting.
Yep.
Were you technical at that point, or?
No, not really. And I can't really say I'm currently technical right now. So like the solutions consultant role to me is a little bit different than like a sales engineer. They're more technical. So really what I did in that role was purely just running the discovery calls, building out presentations and configuring the platform. Platform was pretty non-technical. It was pretty easy to set up. So I wasn't that technical at that point.
Yeah. And you didn't have, sales engineers don't have to design the product, but we have to know how to use it and sell it. So It sounds exactly like what I do, which is a sales engineer, if you want to call it.
Yep.
And why did you decide? So how long were you a sales engineer?
It's maybe a little under a year. There was some shifting and changing that was happening in the organization, just kind of change of leadership, and that that position didn't seem like it was going to be available anymore. And so they're like, hey, you've been doing this for a while. You're really good at doing the demonstrations and justifying the value. We should just put you in a selling role and have you, you have the lead gen side of things. You know how to sell and drive value. You can figure out how to close. And so let's put you in a selling role.
So did they combine the two roles or like eliminate the sales engineer altogether or?
Yeah, they eliminated the sales engineer role temporarily. They have now reopened it, but I'm no longer working there. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. And so you did the sales executive role for also a year or almost 2 years, right?
Mhm.
Which one did you enjoy more, sales engineering or sales?
Sales engineering for sure. Like I just, it's really, to me, it's like taking, a customized email, but it's like on steroids, right? It's an hour-long presentation. And how do I keep people consistently engaged with visuals throughout this presentation? I just love that part of it. And it was my sole focus too. So I was running, a bunch of demos a week versus in my account executive role, I'd have to kind of there's a lot of extra stuff that goes into closing a deal outside of just the demonstration.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to talk to lawyers.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you have to talk to procurement. It's
Mhm.
not always fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
So after that, you actually quit
Mhm.
and you started your own thing.
I did. Yeah.
How's that going so far?
Yeah. Dream come true, literally. I mean, like I said, it was 10 years in the making and we've been thinking about it for a long time and trying to find the right solution. But really the litmus for us that caused me and my co-founder to quit our jobs and, go at DemoFlow full time is we actually got into the Techstars Boulder Accelerator program here in Colorado.
Yep.
And that was at, really the end of last year. And so it was, January of this year that we quit our jobs, jumped in full time and started in that accelerator program and started working with them full time on the business.
So you had something going beforehand. You said end of last year.
No, so I was just working with my previous company, Bird Eye, in the full cycle account executive role, and basically took that up through the end of last year. And then we had this idea to start this platform and start working on this. And we pitched that to Techstars, and they brought us into their accelerator program to start working on it, which inspired us to go full time.
Okay, and like, if you pitch it to Techstars and they say yes, does that mean it's a good idea? Like, it is worth quitting your job and going at it full time?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we got some funding, so it allowed us to, have a livable wage, brought us into this kind of ecosphere. And I mean, Techstars is such an amazing program. They really stress test the idea. And we came out on the other half after speaking with literally hundreds of people, and we're more confident than ever in the idea and that we should be doing this full time.
Yeah, and Chris seems to love it, so that must mean something.
Yeah.
So what are some of the skills that you're using today as a CEO that you learned as a sales engineer?
Oh, well, I mean, I'd say there's one thing that's really challenging is how do you demo a demo product?
Right.
Like, how do you do that? How does that even work? Right.
Yeah.
It's a little meta in itself.
Yeah.
And so that has been like one of the most truest challenges that I've had to date. It's like, and as we roll out new features and functionalities, like how do you show that while you're showing it using your platform? Like we're actually a desktop application. And so we don't have any web-based portal or anything that we'd be showing. And so it can be challenging. So I think that's creating really enticing presentations and distilling down our value into, concrete slide decks that we can use and explain our value. That's probably one of the strongest things that I took from that position.
Can we dig into that a little bit?
Yeah.
So how did you come up with the methodology of demoing DemoFlow?
Yeah. So, really the genesis for the idea for DemoFlow is pretty simple. Is I wanted to go from a slide deck to a live platform URL and go back and forth quickly and easily to do something like the tell, show, tell methodology from demo to win and do that consistently, but do it easily.
Okay.
And what I was doing at the time is I was literally dragging JPEGs up into a browser of slides and have my platform at one spot and just be moving throughout that presentation and effectively have 30 tabs open as I'm walking through a presentation. And so that was the core idea there was how do we make that process really simple? I want to upload my slide deck, insert a live URL, which would be my platform. And how do we make that consistently, do that type of demo process consistently?
Yeah.
And so that's where the idea started. And, a lot is, kind of genesis, a lot has come from that so far.
Yeah. It's funny because I just, we were in a presentation where someone was sharing, he had to share his desktop on a WebEx because he had multiple applications. So he couldn't just share one application because if he does that, and he switches to another one, nobody will see it, and he has to share that one.
Exactly.
And we ended up seeing his team messaging between him and his colleague because he
Right.
shared the wrong screen. So
Happens all the time, right? You never, people don't really think as much about your background on your computer or how to clean things up,
yeah.
pause your notifications, all that type of stuff. It's a lot of risk.
I do want to point out, like, this show is not sponsored by DemoFlow, but I am very genuinely curious about the product itself. And Chris White really talks highly of you guys. So here's a free commercial. When you started it, like, you have your co-founder, he's doing all the coding.
Mm-hmm.
What were you doing in the meantime?
A lot of, frankly, a lot of helping with the design of the product, helping, get my hands dirty on that end. I like that aspect of it and have a decent eye for design. But, I'm building a product for myself. I mean, I was the end user. I was both a pre-sales and sales, consultant, both of those. And so I had a good understanding of kind of that dynamic there and how that could work. But that said, is you don't really like that would, if we just build it based upon what I wanted, it would be a tool for me. And so we did a lot of, really early customer development, customer interviews, looking at larger organizations, smaller organizations, talking with pre-sales, sales exclusively, customer success managers, leadership, and just understanding what are the most valuable pieces of this and what should we be adding to make it really easy to standardize the whole presentation process.
How did you get customers to meet with you when you didn't have a product? Like, we have a hard time getting customers to meet with us when we have something that would help them today. How did you get them to meet with you when you didn't have anything to show at that point?
Well, we did show stuff. We showed mock-ups, we showed, slides, we show, just kind of general feedback, right? We can say, hey, this is just a mock-up. We use stuff like Figma or other design platforms to be like, do you like this one or this one better? We're thinking about making it this way. And we've always kept this in our mind that we need to get feedback early and often, and because otherwise we'll build a tool just for ourselves. And so we aren't shy about getting product out really early, showing people screenshots or mock-ups and, creating some enticing, messaging that way. But then also at the support of the Techstars network, I mean, they have a network of 1,500, 1,800 companies that are from the network. And so it was fairly easy to get introductions through other alumni companies to do feedback sessions.
Okay, so you had referrals. You didn't have to cold call a whole bunch of people to get them to meet with you. You had a warm introduction.
Yep. Yeah, we did both, really. We did warm introduction and cold outreach in both strategies.
So you've been going on for 8 months almost. Mm-hmm. Did meeting the customers early and having them involved in the design of the product, has that helped you in the selling of it later on?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. I mean, and it's just, what is the right order to make this happen? What are the snag points in the product right now? And what can we do to make it easier to use, more intuitive? It's all played into building a really easy to use product.
Okay, and you're doing the selling, I'm assuming. Do you have a lot of employees? I don't know if you want to share that information.
Oh, that's fine. We have a team of 4 right now. We're closing a round of funding, so that'll expand here shortly. But it's myself and another sales rep, Jared Stalling, that is helping me out on the sales side of things.
And who does the demo?
We both do, actually. Okay. It depends on the day and who's running it, but yeah.
Okay. Do you practice it together, or does everyone have their own style and you don't mess with him and he doesn't mess with the way you do things?
No, I mean, we definitely have a similar style, right? That's kind of our whole mantra is, to really sell a product in the best way, you want consistency across the organization and consistently justifying that value and making sure everyone's kind of doing and saying the same things. And so our product is built for that. And so we use our product exactly as is. So we'll use the same slide decks, whether it's discovery call, demo, or so on and so forth, and make sure we have that collaboration between the two of us.
Okay. And for those SEs thinking about opening their own company, what does your day-to-day look like? Do you sleep?
It's been a tough 8 months. I feel like I've been sprinting 7 days a week, pretty much nonstop. But so this is really no joke. I mean, the entrepreneurial route is you have to really want to do this and really be passionate about solving the problem that you're solving. I mean, if we were to stop doing demo flow, I'd probably have to go get a software gig somewhere else, and I have to do demos the old way. And that sounds so painful that I'm so motivated to keep this thing going.
Okay. And are you able to talk a little bit about what you do? Like, the majority of your time?
Yeah.
What is it spent on?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of my time right now is spent on, I do a lot of discussions with investors, either current investors that are actively invested in DemoFlow or potential investors in the future. So making sure that everything on the cash flow side of things is, we're in a good position to keep on growing. I'll do a lot of marketing efforts. I jump in on the sales side of things. I'll even jump in on product and help with design, roadmap stuff. I mean, literally, I could do really anything I wanted to at any given point in the day. And that is a unique challenge of it, though, is it switches back and forth so frequently. And so you have to, it really keeps you on your toes on what should you be working on a day-to-day basis.
Do you have do you have specific time to do something, or is it just as things come up, you're tackling issues?
Yeah.
Because with big companies, we kind of tend to say, "Oh, I'm going to work on this from this hour to this hour." But when you're at a startup, you might not have that luxury. So I'm curious what you do.
Yeah, I've been trying to be more diligent about blocking off time for myself, because that is something that you have to be really conscious of when you're in this type of role or a co-founder role. Like, everything's an emergency, it feels like, and so everything can take up your time in a moment's notice. And so being diligent about blocking off your calendar for dedicated time to be working. But then also, I do get quite a bit of work done on the weekends, unfortunately, but that's kind of where you get your uninterrupted 8-hour block of time.
Okay. And how did Beat and Sales help you kind of get investor money?
Yeah, well, it definitely helps. It's a whole new learning. It's a whole new learnings that are happening right now. So you have a baseline knowledge of the sales world, and how to just connect with the person on the other end, understand what they like, what they're looking for. There's a lot of similarities between selling software and working with an investor. Think of it, the VC world and investment world of like enterprise sales on steroids. Really, it's like the most relationship oriented sales cycle I've ever been a part of, which is great, but it's also challenging. There's no quick wins, really. It's going to take a while to establish a rapport and relationship, and they just dive really deep into the business and ask a lot of really tough questions too. And so being able to field those questions or do the research to get that done is also a unique challenge.
I know when I sell to my customers, I have responsibility towards making this stuff work. And if they call me, I have to help and all that. But I've never had the responsibility of tripling their money or doing something like that. Does that add, I'm assuming it does add a little bit of pressure. How do you handle like having to sell to so many different people, having people dependent on you internally, like in your head? How do you manage that?
That's a good question. I'm learning more and more every day. I definitely don't have it figured out yet. I mean, I'm a first-time founder right now. I've worked on other projects in the past, but making sure you're eating healthy, exercising. I picked up meditation this year just to try to keep, calming my mind when things can feel very chaotic. And especially now in this past, I don't know how long we've been remote, 4 months, something like that. Making sure you get a chance to go outside and get a walk in, and just kind of stretch your legs, get some fresh air, because it's so easy to just sit behind these screens all day, every day, and let the stress kind of mount up. So those are some things I've been doing to try to maintain a level head.
Do you use a specific app for meditation or?
Yeah, I really like Headspace a lot. I bought a subscription there. I found a few like 10-minute meditation stuff on YouTube as well. That's been super helpful. I don't need anything too crazy, just something to help me focus on my breathing and calm my thoughts down.
How do you feel like that has helped you? I'm asking because I've tried meditation several times, and within the 5-minute mark, I start looking at my watch.
Yeah.
How has that helped you? Maybe that will entice me to do some more meditation.
Yeah, it's helped me a ton. And it really, I struggle to do it in the morning, which is, I think, a good time to do it. So you can calm your thoughts and center yourself in the morning. I struggle because I just woke up. I'm trying to get kind of ramped up for the day. And so I found it to be pretty helpful. Towards the end of the day, actually, when, you have 1,000 things that just happen throughout the day, and you're just trying to distill down what are the things that I need to focus on and do tonight to get it done before tomorrow, and really prioritize what's the most important thing to be working on. So I've found it effective at the end of the day.
I've tried to do it after lunch because I feel that's when I'm most tired and I need to get my energy. Yep. But that never ended well for me because
right. I'm gonna take a quick nap instead.
So you've been working on DemoFlow for 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
What's the feedback that you're getting from folks about it?
Yeah, I'd say the most flattering comment is like when someone looked at myself and my co-founder and said, "Okay, which one of you is a solution consultant? Like, who is the SC in this group here?" And I raised my hand. I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "It shows. Like, you grabbed all the spots and the things that are needed before, during, and after a presentation, and it shows." Like, so that's the most flattering thing that we've gotten. So it's around the prep side of things. How do you actually present? And then the follow up. So basically, you can run back to back to back presentations like a lot of us are doing nowadays,
Yep.
and not miss any steps or leave all your documentation or follow up emails to the next day or next week.
Nice. All right. Well, it is time to move on to the not so fire round. These are 4 questions I ask almost every guest,
Okay,
and you can take your time answering, which is why it's not so fire round.
sure.
But so, what do you love? What do you love about doing what you do today?
There's possibility in this. We have the full control over the future. So you live and die by your own decisions, which has just been something that I'm a skydiver. So that's one of my
Okay.
hobbies. And so, living and dying by your own decision, obviously I'm alive, but like, I like that. I want control of my own destiny. So I think that's the part that's the most attractive for me.
So, being a skydiver versus being a founder of a startup, which is scarier?
Being a founder for sure. I mean, I've done almost 350 skydives, so like it's like it's pretty normal, and I'm used to it now. I've only started one company, so
Okay.
this is a different ball game.
All right. So, second question is, what would you change about your role today?
Um, that's a good question. I don't know if I would change anything, honestly. I mean, I'm learning new things about the role every single day, and like what it means to be a CEO of a small startup company and the pressures that come with it. And I'm really just embracing it, whether I like it or I don't like it. It's all a part of it.
Right.
Fundraising is stressful. Managing people is stressful. Knowing that you only have, however many months of runway left, that's really stressful.
Yeah.
But you can't have the good without the bad, right? And so just trying to like embrace that this is what it is, and it's going to be as good on the back half as difficult as now.
Yeah. Well, I think that comes with every job, right? As a
Oh
sales
yeah,
engineer, we complain about account managers setting up meetings at the wrong time, but
yeah,
we never complain when they close a deal, right?
totally, right?
So
Yeah,
there are positives and negatives. Sometimes
absolutely.
they're more extreme when you're a founder, I guess, than an SE.
Yeah.
Is there a resource you would recommend to people to? Is there anything that would prepare people if they want to become startup founders?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Techstars. It's pretty challenging to get into, but once you're into the program, the level of support they provide. So you do this thing called Mentor Madness in the first 2 weeks, and you meet with literally like a couple hundred people, and they just grill you with questions and really stress test the idea, and it gives you confidence as a founder and so much more insight and advice. I mean, literally, your head's kind of spinning at the end of it, but it helps to prepare you for going into an investment type of world, starting a company. And so that has been probably the biggest blessing, is getting into that program and really helped prepare us.
So what would you need to get into that program? Like if I am a founder, I'm not a techie guy.
Yeah.
Can I still get into it without a techie person, or do I need one?
Yeah, of course. I mean, they take really any different, it's not just SaaS startup companies, really. It's any type of company. Like we worked with a company called Accessory Junkie that did jewelry. They worked with
Okay.
another company called Best Shop that was a software for fertility. A whole slew of different styles of companies that can come in. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a technical product or even software, but you have to have at least an idea that you're able to convince them that you're the right person, and you have the right team to execute on that idea. And you can do so and make a lot of progress and traction in that 3-month span of time.
Okay. Nice. And is there something like if someone to prepare psychologically to become one? Is there such a thing, such a resource to help people prepare people to get into that, or just you have to do
Um,
it?
I think it's part of, well, what I did to prepare for Techstars was they have a lot of resources on YouTube and videos on there of just like
Okay.
explaining what it's like. And they also, both Techstars and the Foundry Group do a really great job of, creating videos around the stresses that you can expect as a founder and mental health issues that you should be aware of, because this is no joke. It's really challenging. And so they do a good job of preparing you on the front half that, and also providing resources during program if you need it or are struggling, to help to guide you along and make sure nothing bad happens.
And like, did you develop relationships throughout that now you can lean on?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, once you're in Techstars, you're a founder for life and you're a part of their alumni group. And we have advisors that we've continued to take with us and will continue throughout the life of the company. And, the managing director, Natty Zola, and Malta Witt, they were so supportive and just truly good friends of us now. So we'll maintain a good relationship with them moving forward forever.
Okay. You can tell why this is not the fire round. It's the not so fire round because I ask a whole bunch of follow-up questions. All right.
Sure.
What do you think differentiates, this is specific to sales engineering, what do you think differentiates great sales engineers from the okay or not so great ones?
That's a good question. Well, I think, being process oriented is a big part of it because you're managing, and when you're a sales engineer, you're working with other parties, your sales counterparts, right? And so how do you maintain that relationship, get as much, coach them to do great discovery calls. So you're actually running calls that are really qualified, right? And then doing enough preparation on the front half because selling, as Chris White will say, selling is a team sport, right?
Yeah.
And so you need to prepare on the front half and make sure that you're both in alignment and in sync before you're going into the call, and have enough information and have a game plan on how to do that. I mean, anyone can run a generic demo, but few can run really great personalized demos that captivate people's attention.
Nice. All right. So if people want to learn more about you or about DemoFlow, where can they reach out?
Yeah, you can reach out to us at demoflow.io, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name is Larson Stair. I'm CEO and co-founder of DemoFlow, but I'm around and happy to chat with anybody.
And last question of the day. Was there a question you were hoping that I would ask you and I didn't?
No, I think that was good. I don't think I was expecting the SC to CEO, that transition, because it's definitely a different route that I took, especially starting in medical.
Right.
And my path has been not the traditional one, so to speak, especially from SDR to SC. But no, I think that was a great discussion.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for jumping on, Larson, and I hope to see you soon.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Ramsey. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did. I loved the fact that Larson really knew where he wanted to go, and he took steps to get there. Like, it wasn't a one step and you're there. It was going from medical sales into software sales, becoming an SE, becoming a sales executive. It wasn't just, oh, I want to be a CEO, and tomorrow he was, or the next day he was a CEO. It took a while. It took planning. And I love the fact that he had it planned, or he had an outline, but sometimes he had to deviate. But this was an amazing show. Like, and it's not just for CEOs. If you want to be SE manager, then you might have to move a couple companies to become an SE manager. Or if you want to go into sales and there is no opportunities within your company, you might have to be a sales SE somewhere else before moving into sales. So just think of ways to get what you want, basically. No one's going to give you what you want unless you ask for it or work for it. I guess with these words of wisdom, this is Ramsey for the Absent Benny signing off.